people hear the word rich, they immediately think of something big, big houses, big cars, big salaries. They think of luck, they think of privilege, they think of a giant overnight success story that somehow dropped wealth right into someone's lap. But let me be real with you. That's not what happened in my life, and that's not what happens for most people who actually build wealth. The truth is way less glamorous, but way more powerful. What made me rich wasn't giant leaps. It wasn't one jackpot moment. It wasn't one perfect investment that turned me into a millionaire. It was tiny habits. 17 small, almost invisible choices, repeated over and over again until they compounded into something massive. Now, why am I telling you this? Because if you're sitting there, maybe scrolling on your phone, maybe wondering why success feels so far away, you need to hear this: wealth isn't built in the future. It's built in the present. It's built in the tiny things you do daily, not the giant things you dream about someday. That's what I want to walk you through. 17 habits. But here's the key: don't underestimate them because they sound small. Small is what changes your life. Let's start with the first one: waking up with intention. I didn't say waking up early because some of you hear 4:30 a.m. and think, no way. And that's fine. What I'm talking about is waking up with purpose. For years, I used to wake up, grab my phone, scroll through social media, and let the world decide my mood before I even brushed my teeth. That was a terrible habit, so I changed it. I started waking up and asking myself one simple question: what's the most important thing I need to do today that will make me proud tonight? That's it. That one shift gave me clarity. It gave me momentum. It forced me to start my day on offense, not defense. Second tiny habit: tracking every dollar. I used to think budgeting was boring. Honestly, I avoided it. But the day I started writing down every expense, even the $3 coffee, it was like turning on the lights in a dark room. I saw where my money was really going. And guess what? Money is like water. It leaks out through tiny cracks if you don't pay attention. Tracking every dollar made me intentional. It made me cut out the waste, and more importantly, it gave me a sense of control. Control builds confidence, and confidence makes you rich long before your bank account does. Third habit: reading 10 pages a day. Just 10. Some of you think that's nothing. And you're right, it's tiny. But tiny adds up. 10 pages a day is about 300 pages a month. That's a full book. That's 12 books a year. Do you know how many people read 12 books a year? Almost none. And the knowledge I gained from that habit opened doors I didn't even know existed. It gave me strategies, perspectives, and ideas that completely shifted how I saw money and opportunity. Fourth habit: surrounding myself with better conversations. This one hurt at first because it meant distancing myself from people who only complained, who only joked about being broke, who only lived for the weekend. I loved them, but I couldn't grow in that environment. So I started finding people who talked about ideas, investments, growth, and possibilities. Not because they were smarter than me, but because their mindset pulled me upward. Here's the truth: your income will almost always reflect the average of the people you spend the most time with. Change your circle, change your wealth. Fifth habit: automatic saving. I didn't wait to feel motivated. I didn't wait until I thought I had extra money. I set up an automatic transfer so that as soon as money came in, a percentage went to savings before I even touched it. Out of sight, out of mind, out of temptation. That's how wealth starts, by paying yourself first, not last. And here's the kicker: it didn't feel like much in the beginning. But over months and years, it built a safety net that gave me the confidence to take risks when opportunities came. That's how small turns into big. Sixth habit: moving my body daily. What does exercise have to do with being rich? Everything. Because when your energy is high, your decisions improve. When your energy is low, you settle for easy, and easy keeps you broke. Moving my body wasn't about six-pack abs. It was about clarity, stamina, discipline, the exact skills I needed to build wealth. Seventh habit: writing down goals, not just thinking about them. Dreams in your head stay dreams. But the moment you put pen to paper, you're making a declaration. You're saying, this matters. Every Sunday night, I write down what I want to achieve in the week ahead, financially and personally. That habit gave me direction. It gave me a scoreboard to measure progress. It kept me accountable when motivation faded. Eighth habit: asking questions instead of pretending I knew it all. I used to avoid asking because I thought it made me look weak. But let me tell you, the wealthiest people I've met are the most curious. They don't waste time pretending. They ask, they learn, they apply. The habit of asking, can you explain that? Or, what would you do in my position? Gave me shortcuts that saved me years of trial and error. Ninth habit, saying no more often. Do you know how much money you waste saying yes to things you don't even care about? Dinners, subscriptions, favors, distractions. Every yes costs you time, money, and energy. Learning to say no respectfully but firmly was one of the richest habits I ever built. It freed up resources for the things that actually mattered. Now, I could keep going through all 17, but here's what I need you to notice. None of these habits sound extreme. None of them are impossible. They're simple, almost too simple. And that's why most people ignore them. They want fireworks. They want quick wins. But wealth doesn't work like that. Wealth is quiet. It's slow. It's built on tiny daily deposits of discipline. Let me leave you with this thought. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you picked just 3 of these habits and practiced them daily. Not 17, just 3. Waking up with intention, tracking your money, reading 10 pages. That's it? Would your life be the same, or would it be radically different? The answer is obvious. So don't just listen to me. Do something. Wealth isn't waiting for you in the future. It's hiding in the tiny things you do today. That's how I became rich, not through luck, not through one big break, through 17 tiny habits that anyone, including you, can build starting right now. I first started sharing the idea of these tiny habits. A lot of people laughed. They said, how could something so small make you rich? And honestly, I get it, because most of us are trained to believe that big results come from big actions. But let me ask you something. When's the last time a giant, one-time effort truly changed your life forever? Probably never. Change doesn't come in explosions, it comes in drips. The tiny drops of water that carve canyons, the daily repetition that compounds into something massive. That's what these habits are about. And if chapter 1 was about the foundation, then chapter 2 is about how those habits play out when life gets hard, when temptation shows up, and when staying consistent feels almost impossible. Let's pick up where we left off. One of the most powerful habits I built was habit number 10, refusing to waste time gossiping or complaining. Listen, complaining feels good in the moment. It's a release. It bonds people. But let's be real. Has complaining ever put $1 in your pocket? Has it ever opened a door for you? No. It keeps you stuck. I used to waste hours pointing out what was wrong, what wasn't fair, how someone else had it easier. But the day I replaced complaining with problem solving, my wealth began to shift. Because energy is limited. Every word you speak is either an investment or an expense. Complaining is an expense that never pays back. Habit 11, learning to invest earlier than I thought I was ready. Most people wait until they feel prepared or until they have enough to start investing. But that day rarely comes. I started small, ridiculously small, but I started. And here's what I learned. The habit of putting money into assets, not liabilities, changes you. It forces you to think long-term. It teaches you patience. And over years, the compounding effect does what no short-term hustle can ever do. The habit of investing is not about the amount. It's about training your brain to plant seeds instead of eating them. Habit 12, treating my word like currency. When I said I'd show up, I showed up. When I said I'd deliver, I delivered. It didn't matter if the task was small or unpaid. Why? Because your reputation is your richest asset. People do business with those they trust. Opportunities flow toward those who keep their word. The tiny habit of honoring commitments, especially the ones no one would notice if I skipped, created credibility that money alone can't buy. Habit 13, avoiding unnecessary debt. Let me be clear, some debt can be strategic, but most debt, it's just shackles dressed in nice packaging. I made it a rule if I couldn't afford it, I didn't buy it. Simple. That habit alone saved me from years of financial stress. And here's the kicker, while everyone else was drowning in payments for things that lost value the second they swiped their card, I was stacking my resources for things that grew in value. Discipline feels restrictive in the moment, but freedom feels a whole lot better. Habit 14, practicing gratitude daily. And I don't mean posting about it or making it a hashtag. I mean actually pausing each morning to list 3 things I was grateful for. Because here's the truth, if you can't appreciate what you have, more will never satisfy you. Gratitude is wealth training. It conditions your brain to recognize abundance instead of scarcity. That shift attracts opportunities, improves relationships, and most importantly, keeps you from chasing money out of desperation. Habit 15, cutting out the someday language. You know what I mean. Someday I'll start a business. Someday I'll get serious about saving. Someday I'll write that book. I banned that word from my vocabulary because someday is code for never. The habit I built instead was asking, what can I do right now with what I have where I am? That question kept me moving. It kept me from waiting for perfect timing because perfect timing doesn't exist. Habit 16, protecting my focus like it was gold. Distractions are everywhere. Social media, notifications, endless scrolling. I had to develop the habit of shutting things off, setting timers, creating blocks of time where my phone was out of reach. It sounds small, but those blocks of undistracted work were worth 10 times more than hours of half-distracted effort. Wealth is built in focused hours, not scattered minutes. And finally, habit 17, celebrating small wins. At first, this felt silly. Why celebrate saving $100 when my goal was $100,000? Why celebrate reading one book when my bookshelf was full of 50 unread ones? But celebrating the small wins trained me to stay consistent. It reminded me that progress is progress no matter the size. And progress compounds. If you can't clap for yourself when you take a baby step, you'll never make it to the giant leaps. Now, let me connect this for you. These 17 habits weren't about money on their own. They were about shaping who I became. Someone disciplined, someone focused, someone patient. And when you become that person, wealth is just a byproduct. That's the secret people miss. They want the money without the mindset. They want the results without the habits. But money doesn't stick to someone who hasn't built the character to handle it. That's why lottery winners go broke. That's why overnight successes crash, because they skip the habits. I want you to picture this. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Imagine waking up debt-free, confident, surrounded by opportunities. Imagine looking at your bank account and smiling, not because you hit the lottery, but because you know exactly how it grew, through small daily habits that stacked on top of each other. That vision isn't reserved for the lucky. It's reserved for the consistent. The truth is, you don't need all 17 habits right now. Start with one. Maybe it's tracking your money. Maybe it's reading 10 pages. Maybe it's saying no when you usually say yes. Pick one, practice it until it's automatic, and then stack the next one. That's how you build wealth, not with giant leaps, but with small steps that never stop. So the next time someone tells you it's impossible, the next time someone laughs at your small efforts, remember this: small efforts are the only thing that ever built anything worth keeping. Don't chase the big, chase the consistent. That's how I became rich, and that's how you can too. When I look back now, what surprises me the most isn't the money itself. It's not the bank account. It's not the investments. It's not the lifestyle. What surprises me is how different I became as a person because of these tiny habits. See, money will change your circumstances, but habits will change you. And if you change, your entire life changes. That's the real win. But let's be real for a moment. Sticking to these habits wasn't always easy. There were days I wanted to quit. There were nights when I thought, is this even working? Why bother saving when it's just a few dollars? Why bother reading when I'm tired? Why bother saying no when it would be so much easier to say yes? I had all the doubts, all the excuses, all the reasons to stop. And that's where the secret lesson hides. See, it wasn't just about the habits themselves. It was about who I became by keeping them, especially when it was hard. One of the first breakthroughs I had was realizing that wealth isn't a number. It's a lifestyle. You don't suddenly hit a dollar amount and magically feel rich. No, you start to feel rich when you live differently, when you're intentional, when you're disciplined, when you know you're building something solid, brick by brick. That sense of stability is what made me rich long before the numbers caught up. And here's the truth you probably don't want to hear: you already have habits. Right now, every single day, you're repeating actions that are either making you wealthier or keeping you stuck. Scrolling mindlessly, that's a habit. Eating out 5 times a week, that's a habit. Ignoring your budget, that's a habit. And all those little habits are leading you somewhere. The question is, do you like where they're leading you? For me, the turning point came when I stopped asking, what big thing can I do to get rich? And started asking, what small thing can I change today? That's when everything shifted, because the big results I wanted were never hiding in some future miracle. They were hiding in the small things I was ignoring every single day. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I made a habit of cooking at home instead of eating out all the time. It didn't feel like a financial strategy, it just felt like a healthier choice. But over months, the money I saved started stacking. Then, instead of letting it sit, I invested it. Those investments grew. That tiny habit, choosing to cook dinner, helped me buy my first property years later. Think about that. One choice about dinner turned into real estate. That's the power of tiny habits. Another example, the habit of reading. One book led me to a new idea. That idea led me to try a side hustle. That side hustle became a business. That business opened doors I never saw coming. You can trace it all back to the simple choice of reading 10 pages a day. See how it works. Small actions create giant outcomes over time. But here's the part most people miss. Tiny habits don't just build wealth, they protect it. Because what good is making money if you don't know how to keep it? I've seen people get promotions, start businesses, even win big deals, and still end up broke. Why? Because they never built the habits that make wealth sustainable. Without discipline, without gratitude, without focus, money slips away as fast as it comes in. Habits are what create the container strong enough to hold your success. And let me be honest with you, these habits didn't make me perfect. I still slip. I still spend more than I should sometimes. I still procrastinate. But the difference now is that I don't stay stuck. The habits I've built pull me back on track. They've become my safety net. When life knocks me off balance, my habits are the rails that guide me back. That's why this works. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Now, I want to talk to you directly. If you're sitting there thinking, this sounds good, but my situation is different, I want you to stop. Your situation doesn't disqualify you from this. Whether you make a lot or a little, whether you're starting at 20 years old or 50 years old, the principle is the same. Tiny habits compound. The only difference between people who stay stuck and people who build wealth is that one group underestimates the small things and the other group doesn't. So let me challenge you. Take inventory of your life today. Write down your daily habits, every single one. Be brutally honest. Then ask yourself, if I keep living this way for the next 5 years, where will I end up? If you don't like that answer, then today is the day you change it. And you don't change it with some giant, overwhelming plan. You change it with one small, intentional habit that you repeat until it's automatic. Then you add another. Then another. Before you know it, you've completely transformed your life one small step at a time. That's what I did. That's how I went from being broke, frustrated, and overwhelmed to being financially free, confident, and at peace. And you can do the same. So let's bring this full circle. 17 tiny habits made me rich. Not because they were magical, not because they were glamorous, but because they were consistent. They built discipline. They built focus. They built character. And wealth followed. If you want to be rich, stop looking for the big secret. Start looking at the tiny choices you're making right now. Because those choices are the bricks building your future. Let me leave you with this. Success is not built in years. It's built in days. It's built in the quiet choices no one sees, the disciplined actions no one applauds, the tiny habits no one notices. Until one day, everyone notices. One day, people look at you and say, wow, you're lucky. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck. It was habits. And if I can do it, you can too. Your 17 tiny habits are waiting. The question is, will you start today?